Try again.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. This is the school's way of saying you're okay with it being recorded. If you want to get ready and change your name or something like that, but I don't think any of you have any problem with it. So I'll record it. I'll put it on YouTube. Seems to be working out okay. I get a count to see who's watching, and I see a couple people are watching, and that's all good. So, all right, chapter 11. First section, 11.1, talks about these things called exceptions. And if you remember way back in 121, for some of you, it was way back, we got to working with files. And when we did our public static void class, blah, 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 we had to add something to the end of that. Does anybody remember what it was?
Throws IO.
Yeah.
Exception.
Yeah, did that throws IO exception.
Yeah.
And, for the beginner, we really didn't need to talk about it. And I said to some of you that I had in the classroom, this is something that's going to come up when we get to later in the book and we talk about what all this throwing is. Well, what we're going to do, and what you've learned probably from the code listings, is we're going to be working with these things called exceptions. And it's things that makes our program crash. Okay. For example, the simplest couple that we have are, for example, what happens if I try to divide by 0? My program crashes. What if I try to open up a file and it doesn't exist? The program crashes. Well, what we can do is, what was that? We good? Okay. What we can do is take a look at these things, which have the name exceptions, and we can write code to protect our programs from crashing when these exceptions happen. So going through the book, and I know you all read the book and you get a lot out about it, but when an exception occurs, like an index out of bounds, what happens is an object is created, and it's created in memory. So you really don't see it, but an object is created. And when this object is created, it goes somewhere. And all of a sudden we start to say it gets thrown. Okay, so this exception object gets thrown, and if we don't catch it, throw and catch, then our program's going to crash. Okay, so these things, exceptions, are occurring in a lot of different ways that we've just like, oh crap, it crashed and I'm done. If you take a look at figure 11.1, I'm on page 703, and I don't know how good it's showing up on the camera, but hopefully some of you can. And let's see if I can get a better view for me. And you can all pull it up. Again, it's blurry. I wish I had a better camera, but I don't. But you see my book. It's got the notes. It's got highlights and everything all over it. We have the object class, which is way at the top. And one of the subclasses for objects is something called throwable. And if you think about it, yeah, we have the word throws, and these exceptions get thrown. Now, you see two types of subclasses coming out of here. One is called error, and these are critical errors. If you read the book, you would have seen things like, what happens if I run out of memory? Then a critical error occurs, and that's not something we can handle or that we want to handle. But the ones that we do like, the exceptions over here, see the smiley face? We like those. We can take care of them. We can handle them. For example, everything could be handled with exception and done. Boom. Whatever's inside of that class exception, we could take care of all types of methods. But if we want to start to get more specific, for example, IO exception, that's going to allow me to work with files. When I have problems with files, I can work with this. And as you know from the super subclass relationship, this subclass is going to inherit a bunch of stuff from the superclass, and we'll be able to work with it and use it a little bit better. Now, we talked a little bit about exceptions back in 161, and we talked a little bit about exceptions in 162, but now we're really starting to get into them. Another class that I could create an object for, instantiate an object for, is the runtime exception. This is an example of when we have that index out of bounds. Do you notice in the IO exception, we we have subclasses that are even defined a little bit more, like an end of file exception, or the next one is a file not found exception. So we have this great big hierarchy of objects that can be created and thrown depending on what type of message it is. Questions? I hope not. Next thing, we have something called open file. And let's see if I can share this screen. Did I share this screen?
Yes.
Cool. All right, in open file, I take a look at my import statements, a habit I've gotten into, and all of a sudden I see line number 1 is something new. Import java.io.asterisk. Okay? Scanner I'm okay with, JOption pane I'm okay with, and I come down and I get ready and I create my first try block. Now, should I put all of my code in a try block? No. Only a place where I might have a problem. Okay, so if I'm inside of this try block and I start working with files and something goes goofy with files, I could catch, and again, I could go back to that hierarchy. I could catch throwable, I could catch exception, but in this case, I want to be a little more specific. I want to catch a file not found exception. Now, in this catch block, what I'm catching right here, file not found exception E, I'm catching an object of type file not found exception. Once again, that's the class name. My actual object name is as simple as E, and I can make that anything I want. I could call it mom if I wanted to, but in this case, I'm calling it E, and the object's name E could then be used with any methods that might be found in file not found exception. And you know a couple of those are coming up from the code listing. But if I catch an error of type file not found exception, it'll come into this catch block instead of the program crashing, print out file not found, jump out of my catch block, print done, and be done. Okay, questions? Killer dogs in my house. Questions? Okay, next program you typed in was exception message, excuse me. And I'm gonna go pull that up. And again, I see in line number 1 that import java.io. Okay, and I'm coming in, I have my try block. We get a file name, and notice this time inside of my catch block, I take my object name and I do something with it. I use one of its methods. One of its methods is called getMessage. So I take my object and I display what in file not found exception the method getMessage has to say. And when you ran that program, what did getMessage have to say? Hang on. Hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I was making sure I got an S. Yes. Get my volume turned up. You know how my headphones are. I told you they're goofy, so I'm going to go without them again. All right. So I look inside of file not found exception and I see get message. All right, here's what I want you to do. Jump on Google and see if you can do file not found exception class methods and see if you can find something other than get message that might exist. You finding anything?
Yeah.
What?
Oh wait, hang on. That's methods from something else.
And you should see get message as one of them.
Get cause, get localized message, get Stacktrace.
Okay, so everybody's finding something.
It doesn't look like it has any of its own methods.
It
Just
should,
inherited ones.
yes, it
Yeah.
should inherit quite a few. And get message could be one that it inherits all the way up to the top, up coming out of throwable, out of exception. One of those two.
It says it comes out of throwable.
Throwable, okay, good. All right, the next file we're going to take a look at is Parse It Err. You typed in 11.4, and we start out with the string ABCDE, and you notice I say number equals integer.parse inch of str, and inside of here, an error pops up. Once it does, you notice it goes to a message, and you simply get an output error, conversion error. So when this was run, conversion error, okay? So the get message here would be conversion error. Questions? All right, so all of a sudden your programs are going to start getting bigger and bigger, and there was one that I did not make you type in that was called Sales Report 1, but I did have you type in Sales Report 2, and that's the one I'm going to pull up and take a look at now. All right, so what do I have? I have my java.io. I come in, I have sales data.txt, and I'm all happy. I'm asking for a file name, and while input, I got some stuff going on, and now I get to my while, and here's my try block. While input dot has file next. So what would cause an error here? I'm looking at the group from line 25 to 41. You typed it in, and I'm asking what, yeah.
If the input file has like non-numeric data.
Right. So if you're in a company and a data analyst or somebody is entering data, and would you want it to crash if they accidentally hit A instead of 1? Well, this would be able to handle it. We could be reading some numbers in. We could make a comment, whatever it was is bad data, and we actually caught it without the program crashing. To me, I think that's kind of cool. If I go down to the end, I see where I'm trying to open the file. And what happens if I try to open a file that doesn't exist? I have a file not found exception being caught. Comments and questions? Hang in there. I know things are going a little slow right now because you typed these in, and for the most part, you have all of these. The finally clause. Let's do stop share. And I'm coming back to my textbook. Can you see it a little bit? Are you seeing my textbook?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on page 719. 719, I have a try block, nice and blurry, and I apologize. I have a catch block, which I then follow up with a finally. And my finally block is one where as soon as you see it, it kind of makes sense. If I'm working with a data file and I open it, I want to make sure it gets closed. So I hit that finally block so that I can make sure the file that I did get open, I can actually take some time and close. Okay, 1117, Stacktrace. It's one I didn't have you type in, but if you took a look at it, you get ready and you call a method and you call another method, and finally an error occurs. And for the first time in this book, finally, they mentioned about what happens with an error message. And if you take a look at this one, you see my program output, I'm calling my method, and then I'm calling produce error, which is another method. And then inside of there is where it crashes. And if you take a look, I have this stack trace that occurs that backs me out of what my error was. It was at the char at, which is in produce error, which is in my method, which is called by the main. With me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to come back to that in a minute. But the first thing I want to take a look at is 11.8 on page 723. One of the things that we can do is, what if I want to do one catch block but have multiple classes? One class called file not found exception, another class called input mismatch exception, and I'm going to stick them in an object named EX. So if I wanted to, by using a single bar, even though our OR used to be a double bar, by using a single bar, I can catch two types of exceptions within one catch block. Somebody give me an ooh.
Ooh.
Thank you. Other things that are going on. And we'll talk about that on Wednesday. But what happens if I want to start catching multiple exceptions? And what if I wanted to create our own? But for today, what I want you to do, and it seems like these classes are shorter online, probably because I'm doing all the talking and not you, is I want you to go to the, where is it? 11.7. Okay. I want you, and you have 20 minutes, almost 25 minutes to do. I want you to type in 11.7. And over here where this error occurs, I want you to put a try and a catch in. So you'll have to figure out which class I'm going to use to catch this type of mistake and then put it in there. Questions? Sounds easy? Anybody? Hello, is there anybody out there? Okay. I'm going to let you to it on your own. On Wednesday, we will again work in groups, and I'll be putting you in the breakout rooms, and I'll explain more of that. I can't remember if we did it in this class or not, but that's what we have coming up Wednesday. But are there any questions? Okay, I'm going to end the recording.